All right, cool. So, so the video yesterday was about a nucleotide. All right, now, okay, what did you guys understand about a nucleotide? What is a nucleotide?
It's used to make DNA and RNA.
Exactly, very good. So if you have DNA and you have RNA, right? Okay, very good. These two things, okay, both of them are very big molecules, okay? They're huge molecules, all right? And remember, what did we say about the natural world? Okay, what did we say about the natural world? How is it built? What's the smallest unit of matter?
Cells?
No. Cells are huge compared to the things I'm talking about. The smallest things that exist in the whole world are what?
Atoms?
Atoms, very good, right? And so you remember, okay, we talked about these atoms in particular, right? And so what you need to remember is that, okay, atoms come together to form molecules, okay? And so nucleotides, all right, okay, are actually molecules, okay? They're molecules. A nucleotide is a little molecule, okay? It looked big in the video, but it's actually not. It's very, very small. And so these molecules are used to build DNA and RNA, okay? Both of these guys are called what? They belong to what family of macromolecules? What family of macromolecules do they belong to?
Living.
Huh?
Living.
No. Remember, you got to remember scale, right? So remember last video, okay? Remember, like if you remember from last video, let me go ahead and erase this. All right. Last video, we talked about a cell, right? Okay, and we said that cells, okay, are made out of these things called what are the things with the L's? The cell is made up of what? What did the L represent? See, so you guys got to watch that video. That video from yesterday. What does anybody understand what that L represents? Started with an L. The word starts with an L. L-I. L-I. What is it? What is it? Remember, okay, there are these things called lipids. Write it down. You don't have it. So there's these molecules called lipids that are used to make the cell. And then inside the cell, okay, there's these things that started with the letter P. What are those things? What are those things called? Inside the cell that's name starts with a P.
Protein?
That's right, proteins. That's right, right? There's proteins. Also, there's things inside the cell, right, that give it energy, that allow it to make energy. What are these things called? What are these molecules called? It starts with a G.
Glucose.
Good, glucose. And then the last one, right, the last thing that we talked about was this thing. What's this?
DNA.
The what?
The DNA.
The DNA, very good. Okay, DNA or nucleic acid. So remember, these two things are nucleic acids. So in other words, in order to make a cell, you need these 4 ingredients. Okay, does that make sense? In order to make a cell, these are the 4 ingredients. You need the lipids to make the outside of the cell and the organelles. You need the proteins, because remember, what did I say proteins are? They're like what for the cell? Kept on saying it over and over and over for the last couple of days. Proteins are like what? Started with an A.
Apps.
Apps, remember? Apps. Think of apps. Okay, the cell needs these proteins to get jobs done. Just like your Instagram app lets you take pictures and send them out to the world, or your camera lets you take pictures, or your calendar lets you set up and organize yourselves, right? Proteins are these apps that the cell needs to do certain jobs. Without glucose, then there's no energy to run all these proteins, because these proteins run on energy, right? And then also some of these proteins make more DNA and so forth like that. And then finally, the nucleic acids, right? There's 2 types. You now know that there's 2 types. There's DNA and RNA. So both of these guys are actually in here. Okay, one of them looks like double-stranded, the other one looks single-stranded. All right, but why are nucleic acids so important? We talked about that yesterday as well. What do they have inside? What do they store? What do nucleic acids store?
Our DNA and RNA.
Yeah, DNA and RNA are important because they store what? What do they store within the molecule? What do they have that's super important? We kept on talking about it over and over the last 2 days. If you remember, cells and cell phones, okay, they both run on what?
Code.
Started with a C.
Code.
Code, that's right. Remember, nucleic acids, think of nucleic acids like the hard drive, right? That's where all the codes are stored. The nucleic acids store the codes. Think of like the hard drive. If we take out the hard drive, right, out of a computer, or we take the memory card out of the cell phone, then it doesn't have anywhere to store the codes. So nucleic acids store the codes, right? Why do cells need codes? Why do cells need codes? Super important. Remember, there's only 4 things inside a cell, so it has to do with one of those 4 things. Why do cells store codes? What are the codes used for?
The codes are used to download apps.
You download the codes so that you have the codes to make the apps, to make the protein. You understand? That's how it works. If there's no codes, then they can't make the proteins or the apps that the cell needs to stay alive. Right? So that's the big picture. Write that down in your notes. Summarize it so you guys have it. Okay, so now what the video for homework was helping you understand DNA and RNA. Like, for example, yesterday I asked the question to my 5th period, and they're like, oh, what the heck? Okay, I asked them, how come you guys don't write an app, okay, and then sell that app for $1, and if you get a million downloads, you get $1 million, right? So if you make an app, sell it for $1, sell 1 million of those, right? You make $1 million. How come you guys don't how come you guys don't do that and make that app? Right, Aaron, I just told you how to make $1 million. Why don't you do it? How do you make an app?
With codes.
Exactly. And so why don't you make that app? Because you don't know how to do what?
How to find the codes.
Exactly. You don't know how to code, right? And so the idea is, that's what I'm trying to teach you now. I'm trying to teach you how the DNA codes work. All right. But in order for me to teach you how the DNA codes work, like how these codes work, I have to first start teaching you about a nucleotide, because that's where we need to start. Okay. And so far, you guys understand that a nucleotide is a molecule that is used to make DNA and RNA. Does that make sense? So we feel good about it? So let's recap then. Anthony, what are the 4 things you need to build a cell?
Lipids, proteins, glucose, and nucleic acids.
Good. Now, which of those 4 molecules stores the codes that the cell needs? Okay.
Nucleic acids.
Very good. So make sure you have that. And those codes, Aaron, are used by the cell to make what?
To make apps.
To make the apps. But what are the apps really called?
Proteins.
The proteins. Very good. So if you don't have a protein, it's like not having an app on your phone, right? The cell won't die right away because maybe we don't need that app at that point in time, right? But like, for example, let's say your camera app, okay, was like is like malfunctioning, and then all of a sudden there's this moment in time where, oh, I need to take a picture of that, and your camera app is not working and messes you up. Does that make sense? Same thing happens for the cell, right? And so now that you guys understand the big picture, now we can start talking about DNA and RNA. And the first thing that we need to remember is that both of these guys, okay, are made up of these small molecules called nucleotides. Okay? So now so let's talk about a nucleotide. So what does it look like? So what does it look like? What does it look like? Describe it in words.
Well, I know it has 3 groups for the nucleotide.
Right, good. So very good. So it has 3 parts. Number 1, very good. So the molecule, remember, a nucleotide is just a very special molecule. So if we know that a nucleotide is made out of what? If the nucleotide, right? If we know it's a molecule, then we know that this nucleotide is made out of what? Well, what's a molecule made out of?
Atoms.
Atoms. So we know that a nucleotide is made out of atoms, right? Okay. And so now this molecule can be broken. You can like basically divide it into 3 parts. This part, this part, and then this part. Okay? Now, what's this part called?
The phosphate group.
Very good. Very good. What's this part called?
5-carbon sugar.
Very good. And what's this part called?
The nitrogenous base. I don't know how to say the first word.
Nitrogenous. It's all right. Nitrogenous base. Very good, right? And so a nucleotide is a molecule that looks like this, right? Obviously, this right here is a drawing, okay? So if we had to look at what it actually looks like, right? Okay, nucleotide. Okay, so here we go. So if we look at images, right? And this is why I taught you guys atoms and molecules in last semester, right? Was so that you understood, so you can actually look at these molecules and make sense of them. Okay? So now this right here is a very good example of a nucleotide. Okay? So if we take a look at this bad boy, actually this one's better. I like this one better. Okay? You can actually build this molecule if you had, and if we were in class together, we would build this molecule and then it would make even more sense. Okay? Let me see, let me take a picture of this. Hello? Oh, there we go. Okay, so there it is. Okay. Right, and so here's the molecule. Okay, here's the nucleotide. How many nucleotides are in this picture? What do you think? Anthony, how many nucleotides are in this picture?
Four.
No, no. There's only one nucleotide because every nucleotide has how many parts? Every nucleotide has how many parts? 3, exactly. So this is one nucleotide. Okay? So, and remember, if you had to build it, what are these things in the corner right here that I'm drawing? What are these? Remember, every corner is a what?
Carbon atom.
A carbon atom, that's right. See that? And so all this whole molecule, okay, is one nucleotide, this whole thing. Does that make sense? So that's where I'm going to leave you guys off today, is just really understanding, okay, that a nucleotide is this molecule that has 3 parts. We are going to talk about, like, for example, what makes nucleotides different. Okay, what makes nucleotides different? Right? So that's why I need you guys to go back into the video, okay, and watch the video again, okay, so that way you can get 100% on the video. All right. If you don't want to watch it again, then you're just going to get the score that you got. Okay. So in your case, Aaron is still a 90, but Robert and Anthony, you guys had 75. So now you should be able to answer and get a little bit better answers to that. So that's where we're at with that. Do you guys have any questions for me on this? You sure? All right.